The void is silent. But this silence is wrong. It is not the silence of peace, but the stillness of a crypt. We are adrift, floating through the black, panning across the wounded hull of an Imperial vessel. She is a rogue trader ship, a vessel of immense power and pride, now scarred and lifeless. Her name, barely visible beneath the grime and micro-asteroid pitting, reads, the Gilded Saint. Her running lights are dead. Her auger arrays are shattered. A single jagged scar runs the length of her port side, a wound weeping frozen atmosphere into the cold. We move inside. The transition is jarring. The oppressive quiet of space is replaced by a different kind of quiet. A heavy, thick stillness broken only by the frantic, filtered breathing of our unseen protagonist and the slow, rhythmic ping of his auspex. He is walking through the Grand Promenade, a place that was once a testament to imperial glory, lined with statues of saints and grotesque cherubim. Now it is a charnel house. The statues are toppled. The marble floors are slick with a dark, viscous fluid. Bodies are everywhere, but they are not merely dead. They are disassembled, torn, ripped apart with a fury that is both bestial and chillingly methodical. Armor plating has been peeled open like tin cans. Weapons are shattered. And then we see it, the work. A crew member, her body fused to a bulkhead. Her ribcage has been cracked open, her lungs removed and replaced with a hissing, sparking bundle of wires and jagged metal. Her eyes are gone, the sockets drilled out and filled with crude, malfunctioning optical lenses that twitch and spark, staring at nothing. This is not killing. This is remaking. Our unseen narrator sweeps his flashlight beam further. He finds the ship's astropath. The man is dead, slumped over his ruined choir station. His psionic hood has been ripped from his skull, and his body has been systematically altered. One arm is gone, replaced by a crude piston-driven claw. His spine has been reinforced externally with rebar and rusted plates bolted directly into his flesh. The camera pans up to the Imperial aquila on the wall, the two-headed eagle symbol of the Emperor's divine rule. It has been defiled, but not with the symbols of chaos, not with the glyphs of the ruinous powers. It has been vandalized with tools. Great gouges are torn into it. Pieces of scrap metal and wire have been hammered into its face, and the entire icon is smeared with oil, blood, and something worse. The ship's bridge is the same. Cogitator Bank's priceless instruments of navigation and war are not just broken, they are violated. Screens are smashed, but the internal workings have been ripped out, improved with broken glass and crude cybernetics, then left to die. This is the calling card of the Rak'Gol. In the 41st millennium, we are defined by our fears. Horror is a known quantity. We have a codex for it. We have a name for it. The orcs, a green tide of mindless brutality, a force of nature we can at least comprehend. The Tyranids, the great devourer, a singular cosmic hunger that seeks only to consume. We understand its motive. The Necrons, the ancient soulless automatons rising from their tombs, driven by the cold logic of galactic domination. We know our archenemy, the insidious whisper of chaos, the demonic legion, the traitor marine. We have catalogued their gods, their methods, their temptations. We know these threats. We have doctrines on how to fight them. We have prayers on how to die facing them. But what happens when the darkness that tears your ship apart has no name you recognize? What happens when the monster that remakes your crew into grotesque parodies of life and machine doesn't want anything you can understand? It doesn't want your soul for the dark gods. It doesn't want your biomass for the hive fleet. It doesn't seem to want your territory. It only wants to break, to tear, to desecrate. In a galaxy overflowing with known, defined, and catalogued nightmares, what makes a race so obscure, so utterly alien and unknown, one of the most terrifying threats of all? They are called the Rak'Gol. If you walk into a librarium of the Ordo Xenos, you will find volumes on the Tyranids. You will find cautionary tales of the Drukhari, you will find tactical analyses of the Tau. But if you ask for the file on the Rak'Gol, you will likely be met with a blank stare or a hushed warning. They have no official codex from Games Workshop. They are not a playable faction on the tabletop. They are not a major player on the galactic stage. They are a whisper, a chilling rumor from the lawless voids beyond the Emperor's light, a bloody footnote in the log of a lost ship. So where does our knowledge come from? How do we know anything about this menace? 99% of what the Imperium and what we know about the Rak'Gol comes not from the grand histories of the Segmentum Solar, but from the dense, blood-soaked adventure tomes and source books of the Rogue Trader role-playing game created by the now-defunct Fantasy Flight Games. This is what makes them unique. This is deep lore. This is the lore from the fringes, the supplemental texts, the Game Master's guides. They are the boogeymen for the other boogeymen. They are the creatures that haunt the rogue traders, those incredibly powerful, wealthy, and near-lawless individuals who willingly sail into the unknown for profit and glory. The Rak'Gol are what they fear. They are an enigma preserved in the amber of these RPG books, a threat that was never fully defined by the mainstream studio, and thus was never fully contained. That is the purpose of this deep excavation. This video will be a comprehensive dissection of this terrifying enigma. We are going to collate every scrap of data, every fragmented report from the FFG source books, every recorded encounter, and every chilling logical theory that attempts to fill the vast, dark gaps in our knowledge. We will piece together a complete picture of what we know, what we think we know, and what we are forced to conclude about this Xenos race. Be warned, this is not a brief overview. This is a full-scale analysis, a journey into the radiation-blasted, blood-soaked lore of the Coronis Expanse. So secure the hatches, check your rad counters, and prepare yourselves. We are going on a hunt for the truth behind the galaxy's most brutal and least understood enigma. We are going to find out what the Rak'Gol really are. To understand the Rak'Gol, you must first understand the place that allowed them to fester, the shadow that hides them from the Emperor's light. We are not in the Segmentum Solar. We are not in the fortified bastion of Ultramar. We are in the Coronis Expanse. Imagine the Imperium of man as a vast, fortified continent. The Calixis sector is its last, most lawless border city. And the Coronis Expanse, that is the vast, dark, storm-racked ocean beyond the border. It is a sprawling nebula of treacherous space, a three-dimensional labyrinth of unstable warp routes, pirate kingdoms, forgotten pre-imperial human colonies, and the silent tomb-like ruins of countless Xenos civilizations that rose and fell millennia before mankind ever reached for the stars. The Coronis Expanse is a place where imperial law is not just thin, it is functionally non-existent. It is a place of legend, a place whispered about in the high spires of holy terror and the low-life dens of hive worlds. Why? Because it is impossibly dangerous, and it is impossibly rich. It is the great unknown of the 41st millennium. This is the perfect breeding ground for a nightmare. The unstable warp routes mean the Imperial Navy cannot easily patrol it. The vast, uncharted systems mean an entire empire could rise and fall without anyone in the Calixis sector ever knowing. It is a place where things can hide. And who would be insane enough to venture into this abyss? The rogue traders. These are not mere ship captains. They are the prince merchants, the privateers, the conquistadors of the Imperium, armed with a warrant of trade, a document ancient and powerful, often signed by the Emperor himself or a Primarch. This warrant grants them the right to sail beyond the Imperium's borders, to trade with Xenos, to conquer new worlds in the Emperor's name, and most importantly, to keep a very large portion of the profits. They are the only ones with the ships, the crews, and the sheer arrogant ambition to chart the Coronis Expanse. They are the tip of humanity's spear, and they were the first to be broken by this new threat. The first reports were not of an invasion. There was no grand fleet, no formal declaration of war. It began as a cancer. It began as whispers. A listening post, watch station Gamma 9, suddenly went silent. A chartered merchant vessel, the Void Star, was found adrift, its crew missing, its cargo holds changed. The ship's log was wiped, its cogitators filled with scrap, metal, and bone. At first, the Ordo Xenos of the Calixis sector tried to categorize the threat. This is what the Imperium does. It classifies, it compartmentalizes, it files. But the Rak'Gol defied classification. Were they orcs? The brutality was there, the crude technology. But the answer was no. The attacks were too coordinated. The scrap code cybernetics, while crude, were clearly implanted, not just hammered on for a lark. And orcs love a good fight. They are loud, boisterous, and obvious. These new attackers were silent, striking from the dark and vanishing. Were they agents of chaos? The defilement of imperial saints, the ritualistic mutilation, it all pointed to the ruinous powers. But again, the answer was no. No 8-pointed stars were carved into the bulkheads. No demonic entities were summoned. The rituals lacked any recognizable pattern of worship. This was not the work of a cultist seeking the favor of Khorne or Nurgle. This was something else. Something utterly alien. Were they Drukhari, the Dark Eldar, were known to operate in the Expanse, taking slaves for their dark city? But the Rak'Gol left no survivors. They didn't take slaves. They took parts. They took scrap metal. They took machinery, and they took bones. The few survivors left were not the psychologically scarred victims of Comora. They were the half-butchered left for dead. This was a new horror. A race of brutal hit-and-run reavers who seemed to value scrap metal and bone over gold or territory. They attacked without warning, swarmed vessels with terrifying speed, and then vanished back into the uncharted void, leaving behind only radiation signatures and desecrated wrecks. They needed a name. And so the Rak'Gol were christened. Where did this name come from? It is highly improbable that this is what they called themselves. To call oneself implies a language, a form of communication that others can intercept and understand. The Rak'Gol do not speak. They communicate in a terrifying cacophony of clicks, hisses, and roars that sound more like malfunctioning machinery combined with animalistic rage. No, the name Rak'Gol is almost certainly void-born slang, a curse word spat by the rogue traders and void hands who survived an encounter. It's a name born of fear and ignorance, whispered in the dimly lit taverns of Port Wanda, the last imperial bastion on the edge of the Expanse. Let's break down the name. Rak. It evokes the sound of scraping metal of a rake or claw. It suggests wreck and ruin. And Gol. It sounds like ghoul or monster, a creature that feeds on the dead. The wrecking ghouls, the clawing monsters. It is a name that doesn't define them, but rather defines the experience of encountering them. It is the perfect name for an enigma. It is not a proper imperial designation like Xenos Horribilis. It is a spacer's curse, a bogeyman's title. And as more ships were lost, as more crews were found re-engineered into grotesque techno-monstrosities, this curse word became the official designation. The Rak'Gol. The name itself is a testament to the Imperium's terror and confusion. They are the things that break ships and defile the dead. And for the longest time, that was all anyone knew. We have given the shadow a name. We have tracked its bloody footprints through the void. Now we must face the creature itself. What is a Rak'Gol? What does it look like when the tactical light of a void trooper finally catches it in the corridor? Forget your preconceptions of a bipedal Xenos warrior. The Rak'Gol form is a rejection of all human and even most elder or orc anatomy. It is a nightmare of biology. The most jarring, most reported feature is the limb count. They are octopods, 8 limbs. But do not picture a Terran spider. This is no delicate arachnid. This is a hideous fusion, a blasphemous marriage of reptile and insect. Imagine a creature that stands hunched, its body held horizontally closer to the ground than a man. Its primary locomotion comes from 4 powerful rear-mounted legs. These legs are digitigrade like those of a predatory lizard or a great cat, ending in massive taloned feet that grip decking and bulkhead alike, allowing them to move across floors, walls, and ceilings with terrifying speed. Their movement is not a bipedal walk. It is a scuttling, loping gait, unnervingly fast and low to the ground. From their upper torso, which is massively muscled and dense, sprout 4 more limbs. These are not legs. These are arms ending in multi-jointed scythe-like claws. These are their tools for manipulation, for climbing, for tearing, and for fighting. It is this 8-limbed horizontal profile that makes them so dangerous in the close confines of a starship. They are a scuttling, multi-armed engine of destruction, and they are large. Your average Imperial guardsman stands as a child to these creatures. A standard Rak'Gol clutchkin or warrior form stands over 8, perhaps even 9 feet tall when it rears to its full intimidating height, but it often moves at a height of 6 feet, a low, dense profile of muscle and hate. It is heavier than it looks, packed with dense sinew and a thick, partially ossified hide. A rogue trader who survived an encounter described one charging his position as a living battering ram. How does it compare to the Emperor's Angels of Death? A space marine in full power armor is a post-human giant. The Rak'Gol is a match for that. Where the marine is a marvel of superhuman engineering and tactical grace, the Rak'Gol is a brute. It can meet the charge of an Astartes and hold its ground, a clawing, hissing mass of alien muscle that can absorb bolt rounds and keep coming. Their hide is not skin in any human sense. It is a thick, leathery carapace segmented like an insect's, but with the texture of chipped flint. The color is almost universally described as a sickly, corpse-like pale gray or a dull, stony white. It looks like something that has never seen a sun. This hide is their natural armor, tough enough to turn aside las fire that isn't focused and to slow even the chainsword. It is rough-scarred and often weeping. Their bodies seem to be in a constant state of flux, leaking oily fluids and a faint, acrid steam. Now let us examine the head. This is perhaps the most reptilian aspect of the creature. The head is elongated saurian, perched on a thick, powerful neck. But there is no simple single jaw. The mouth is a horrifyingly complex arrangement of mandibles and shearing fangs, a shredding apparatus designed to rip and tear, not to chew. Survivors speak of a sound it makes, a wet, chitinous clicking, as the mandibles adjust even when it is silent. And the eyes. Oh, the eyes. There are not 2. There are many. Reports vary, but the most common descriptions cite 6 eyes, arranged in 2 clusters on either side of the elongated skull. They are not living, shining orbs. They are flat black, and often glow with a faint, malevolent phosphorescence, usually a dull, sickening green or a cold, digital red. This leads us to their senses. How do they see the world? Given the nature of their eyes and their proficiency in the dark, it is almost certain they do not see in the normal visual spectrum. They are ambush predators. They hunt in the unlit holds of ships and the radiation-soaked ruins of dead worlds. It is theorized they see in a combination of thermal and radiation signatures. To a Rak'Gol, you are not a person. You are a heat signature. Your lasgun is a bright flare of energy. The ship's reactor is a blazing sun. This is why you cannot hide from them in the dark. The shadows are their allies. And what of their language? This is one of the most terrifying aspects. There is none. Not as we understand it. There is no negotiation with a Rak'Gol. There is no parley. There is no shouted wah or guttural blood for the blood god. There is only noise. A terrifying, inhuman symphony of clicks, hisses, and scraping sounds like metal being dragged across stone. Their speech sounds like a voxcaster filled with static, a burst of high-frequency shrieks that are used for basic battlefield coordination, attack, danger mine. It is a language of pure animalistic function. It is the sound of a predator, not a civilization. And what lies beneath the hide? What is their internal biology? This is where we enter the realm of educated speculation based on Ordo Xenos battlefield autopsies. Their blood is not red. It is a thick black or dark purple ichor, oily and foul-smelling with a high metallic content. Their metabolism is a paradox. Their reptilian arachnoid form suggests a cold-blooded creature. Yet they are intensely hot. They radiate heat. Their bodies are often wreathed in a faint, stinking steam. This suggests a powerful internal metabolic furnace, perhaps one that is linked to the very radiation they seem to weaponize. They are walking biological reactors burning with a heat that seems to actively harm them even as it empowers them. Their diet. They are clearly hypercarnivorous, tearing apart flesh with their brutal maws. But there is evidence they are more than that. They consume technology. They don't just break it, they seem to eat it. Reports from the FFG sourcebook Edge of the Abyss describe Rak'Gol tearing panels from walls and ingesting the wiring, grinding plas conduits in their jaws. They seem to need metal minerals and raw technological components for their diet, perhaps to feed the very cybernetics that they will later graft onto themselves. And finally, reproduction. We have never knowingly captured a female Rak'Gol. We do not know if they even have distinct sexes. We do not know if they lay eggs or give live birth. This is perhaps the most chilling gap in our knowledge. Their caste system, which we will explore, includes broodminders. This single term implies a eusocial hive-like structure, similar to ants or termites. It suggests they are not born, but produced. It suggests the existence of vast hidden nests, perhaps on a lost homeworld or a captured space hulk. It suggests that for every 100 warriors we see, there may be a single protected queen or brood mother birthing thousands more. This is the flesh of the monster. A creature of reptilian arachnid horror, a being of unnatural size and strength, a predator that sees in heat and speaks in static. It is a terrifying biological canvas. And it is upon this canvas that the Rak'Gol perform their greatest, most defining act of horror, the improvement of their own already monstrous forms. If the biological form of the Rak'Gol is a nightmare, it is their core philosophy, their defining obsession that makes them a true galaxy-threatening enigma. The Rak'Gol are defined by their cybernetics. But we must be clear. When we say cybernetics in the 41st millennium, our minds are conditioned to think of two things. We think of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the priesthood of Mars. We think of their wholly elegant augmentations. We think of the gleaming, multi-limbed tech priests, their flesh replaced by the holy machine, an act of supreme worship. Their augmentations are intricate, sacred, anointed with holy oils, and inscribed with binary prayers. It is an ascension, a movement away from the weakness of the flesh. Or perhaps we think of the orcs, the cyborg, a crude, slapped-together bionic arm, probably looted from a battlefield, hammered into a green-skinned shoulder and told to work. It is functional, it is brutal, but it is almost comical in its simplicity. It is an augmentation born of necessity and a love for tinkering. The cybernetics of the Rak'Gol are neither of these. They are not an act of worship. They are not a practical slapdash repair. They are an act of invasion. They are a desecration of the flesh. Where a tech priest's prosthetic is a work of art, a Rak'Gol's is a piece of brutalist, hellish scrap. Imagine a limb not replaced, but conquered. A piston-driven leg caked in rust and leaking black, viscous fluid is not seamlessly integrated. It is bolted on. Great crude iron bolts are driven through the creature's tough, pale hide and into the bone beneath. The flesh around the augmentation is not clean. It is necrotic, infected, weeping pus and ichor. Yet the creature lives and seems to draw strength from this violation. Their improvements are thrumming, hissing, sparking monstrosities. Wires are not routed internally. They are exposed, wrapped around limbs like barbed wire. Metal plates are not shaped to the body. They are hammered flat and welded directly onto the Rak'Gol's natural carapace, the heat of the welding torch visibly scorching the tissue. The aesthetic is one of pure, unrestrained brutality. It is technology as a tumor. It is the machine as a parasite, and the host seems to welcome the infection. This is their core identity. A Rak'Gol is not whole unless it is broken, torn, and rebuilt by this horrifying, crude process. This brings us to the central question, the very heart of their mystery: why? Why would a creature that is already a biological powerhouse, fast, strong, and tough, subject itself to this? Is it out of necessity? Are they naturally weak? The evidence screams, no. A single Rak'Gol warrior can tear a squad of guardsmen apart with its bare claws. This is not a crutch for a failing biology. Is it to survive a hostile environment? This is a more plausible theory. As we will see, their obsession with radiation suggests they may hail from a death world, so toxic, so irradiated, that biological life simply cannot survive. Perhaps these crude cybernetics are the only way to shield their organs, to replace the parts that rot away. Perhaps the constant pain, the leaking fluids, the necrosis, perhaps this is just what life is for them. Or is it, as the lore from fantasy flight games strongly suggests, a form of culture, a ritual, a religion? This is the most terrifying answer. They do not do this to survive. They do this because they believe in it. It is a rite of passage, a sign of status. The more crude, invasive, and painful the augmentation, the greater the warrior. It is a form of ritual self-mutilation, an arms race of self-desecration. Let us speculate based on the evidence on the process. Imagine a Rak'Gol surgery. There is no sterile chamber. There is no anesthetic. It is a filth-caked hold in a captured ship or a cave on a barren asteroid. It is a chop shop. The patient is likely held down, roaring and thrashing, not in fear, but in ecstatic anticipation. The surgeon, perhaps a techno-shaman, does not use a scalpel. He uses a power saw. He uses a welding torch. He uses a hammer. This leads to the most disturbing question of all. Do they only upgrade when a limb is lost in battle? Or do they voluntarily remove healthy functioning limbs to replace them with these crude metal monstrosities? All evidence points to the latter. They will hack off a perfectly good clawed arm in order to bolt on a hissing, sparking piston claw that is by any sane measure less efficient, but is to them more holy. They are actively, willingly, joyfully destroying their own bodies to replace them with inferior yet symbolically potent technology. They are practicing a form of anti-engineering. They are not ascending. They are degrading. And the examples of these Kai-Gep, these implants, are a catalogue of horrors. We find them with crude optical sensors glowing green or red, drilled directly into their skulls, sometimes alongside their still-functioning natural eyes. We find their limbs replaced with hydraulic piston spikes and crude grasping claws. We find their torsos cracked open, their ribs replaced with a cage of rebar, their internal organs swapped for boxy, hissing purifiers that belch toxic steam. And most commonly, we find their limbs replaced not just with tools, but with weapons. We find that their very bodies have been turned into walking armories. This is the next layer of their mystery, the technology they create, and the weapons of war they bring to bear upon a terrified galaxy. A creature's weapons are a reflection of its soul. If this is true, then the soul of the Rak'Gol is a fragmented, radiation-burned, hateful thing. Their philosophy of degraded cybernetics bleeds directly into their philosophy of warfare. Their armory is not one of precision. It is one of pure, unadulterated violation. They are at their core a close-quarters race. Their 8-limbed bodies are designed to tear and rend, to swarm and overwhelm. Their primary weapons are the ones they were born with: 4 powerful scythe-like arms, taloned feet, and a maw that can shear through plasteel. A Rak'Gol is a living weapon before it ever picks one up. But they do pick them up. Or more accurately, they build them, or become them. Their close combat arsenal is a horrific extension of their bodies. Many Rak'Gol warriors, as we've established, simply replace their biological arms with weaponized cybernetics. Hydraulic piston hammers that can pulp a man in power armor, claws that rotate like industrial drills. But their most iconic and most common melee weapon is a handheld tool of butchery known as the Rak'Gol razor. Forget the elegance of an Elder power sword or the sacred hum of an Imperial chainsword. The razor is an obscenity. It is an oversized two-handed cleaver, its blade a yard-long, jagged saw edge made of chipped, blackened metal. It is not a monomolecular-edged weapon. It is a tool for tearing. How does it work? It does not hum with a high-frequency disruption field. It shudders. A crude built-in generator likely powered by the same leaking toxic power cells as their implant sends violent low-frequency vibrations down the blade. The sound it makes is not a ching or a voom. It is a rattling industrial roar, like a jackhammer combined with a slaughterhouse bone saw. When a Rak'Gol razor hits an armored target, it doesn't cut. It shatters. The vibrations pulverize ceramite plating. The jagged teeth catch and rip the flesh and bone beneath, pulling it apart in gory chunks. It is a weapon designed to inflict maximum trauma to leave a wound that cannot be repaired. It is like its wielder a tool of pure desecration. But it is their ranged weaponry that truly defines them. It is this technology that reveals the chilling truth of their nature. They do not use solid slug weapons. They do not use lasers. They do not use plasma. They use radiation. Their signature ranged weapon is the Rad Cleanser. Again, you must abandon any image of a sleek, advanced rifle. The Rad Cleanser is a bulky, horrific-looking projector, a boxy collection of unshielded coils, leaking pipes, and a wide bell-shaped emitter. It is often connected via thick, sparking cables to a backpack-sized power source that visibly hisses and leaks a faint greenish vapor. It looks as dangerous to the wielder as it is to the target. When it fires, it does not shoot. It vomits. It projects a wide, incoherent cone of intense, dirty radiation. The air crackles. The beam itself is a barely visible shimmer, a wave of sickly pale white or greenish energy that smells of ozone-roasted metal and rot. The consequences for anything caught in that beam are instantaneous and catastrophic. First is the heat. It is not a melter beam, but it flash cooks organic matter. Flesh is seared fat, rendered blood, boiled in an instant. Second is the radiation. This is its true purpose. The target is saturated with a lethal dose of radiation in a fraction of a second. It is not a slow poisoning. It is an immediate cellular-level assault. The victim's very DNA is shredded. Their cells begin to die, to liquefy. Third is the effect on technology. This dirty beam is also a wave of electromagnetic interference. It fries electronics. Sights on a bolt gun go dark. Vox links fill with roaring static. Auspex scanners die. Cogitators fail. It is an EMP, a heat ray, and a radiation projector all in one. An Imperial guardsman caught in the blast is simply reduced to a steaming, irradiated pile of cooked meat and fused armor. A space marine might survive the initial blast, his power armor's shielding flaring, but he is now a dead man walking. His suit is dangerously irradiated. His internal systems are failing. His body inside the ceramite is poisoned beyond recovery. What does this weapon tell us? This is the key. Why radiation? The implications are terrifying. The only reason to use such a weapon that contaminates the very area you are trying to capture, a weapon that is so dangerous in close quarters, is if you, the wielder, are completely, or at least highly, immune to its effects. The Rak'Gol can fire these rad cleansers in the tight confines of a starship corridor and charge straight through the lingering radiation unharmed while their enemies are dying in their armor coffins. This strongly reinforces the theory that they hail from a world so toxic, so bathed in lethal radiation, that it is their native element. They are not just using a weapon, they are bringing a piece of their home to you. They are cleansing the galaxy of life that is impure life that cannot withstand their toxic touch. This arsenal dictates their tactics on the ground. And to call it tactics is a gross overstatement. The Rak'Gol do not practice strategy. They do not use finesse. They are a force of pure animalistic fury. They are berserkers. A Rak'Gol assault is not a calculated maneuver. It is an avalanche. It is a scuttling, clicking, hissing wave of pale hide and sparking metal. They charge. They simply charge straight into the teeth of the enemy's guns. They do not use cover. They do not lay down suppressing fire and advance. They rely on their speed, their numbers, and the sheer mind-breaking horror of their charge to shatter the enemy's line. The Rad Cleansers fire not to pin the enemy, but to soften the line, to fry electronics and cook the front-line troops. And then, before the smoke has cleared, the Clutchkin are upon you. They will clamber over their own dead, using the corpses of their comrades as shields to continue the advance. They show no concern for their own casualties. This is what breaks the nerve of even veteran soldiers. How do you fight an enemy that does not care if it dies? This is not the joyful, anarchic warg of the orcs who charge because they love a good fight. This is a cold, hateful, silent charge. It is the charge of a creature that lacks any concept of self-preservation. It is not bravery. Bravery is the act of overcoming fear. The Rak'Gol, it seems, do not feel fear. They do not feel much of anything beyond a singular driving imperative to tear, to break, and to desecrate. They are living weapons, and a hammer does not fear the nail. This utter lack of self-preservation is perhaps the final piece of their tactical puzzle. It is not that they are willing to die. It is that the concept of living versus dying is irrelevant to them so long as the enemy is torn apart. An individual Rak'Gol is a monster, but a group of Rak'Gol, that is not a group. It is not a squad or a platoon. It is a swarm. And like the social insects of ancient terror, this swarm is not a collection of individuals. It is a single multi-bodied organism, a collective driven by a rigid biological and horrifyingly purposeful structure. We must abandon all human concepts of society. The Rak'Gol do not have a civilization. They have a hive. They do not have a chain of command. They have a caste system. This system is not based on merit or wealth or power earned. It is by all evidence gathered by the Ordo Xenos from the FFG archives, a matter of birth. A Rak'Gol is produced spawned or brooded for a specific, unalterable purpose. This structure is as much a part of their biology as their 8 limbs or their radiation-filled bodies. It is this hierarchy of flesh that allows them to function to coordinate their mindless brutality into something that can and has toppled entire subsectors. Let us dissect the swarm. At the very bottom, the great teeming mass of the hive are the Clutchkin. These are the creatures we have described so far. They are the rank and file, the warrior, the reaver, the laborer. They are the teeth and claws of the Rak'Gol race. They represent the vast majority of any Rak'Gol infestation, a seething tide of pale hide and sparking crude cybernetics. Their intelligence is, to be blunt, abysmal. They are animals. They operate on pure primal instinct and simple direct imperatives. Attack, defend, gather, destroy. Their psychology is a flat line of pure, unadulterated rage. They are incapable of complex thought of strategy or of self-preservation beyond the most basic animalian level. This is why they are so terrifying in combat. You cannot reason with them, you cannot frighten them, you cannot bribe them. They are a biological weapon pointed and fired by a higher intelligence. Their cybernetics, while brutal, are standard issue for their kind. A replaced arm here, a reinforced carapace there. They are the crude, expendable foot soldiers of the swarm. They are the hands, but they are not the brain. Slightly above, or perhaps parallel to the Clutchkin, is a more specialized caste, the Gore Hounds. These are not pets in the way a Drukhari might keep a chimera. They are not captured beasts. The FFG lore implies they are a distinct lesser subspecies of the Rak'Gol, a biological specialization. They are smaller, leaner, and move with a terrifying low-to-the-ground quadrupedal or even octopodal lope. They are the trackers and shock troops of the swarm. Their role is to hunt. Where the Clutchkin are a battering ram, the Gore Hounds are a scalpel, a very rusty, jagged scalpel. They are sent ahead of the main force, scuttling through ventilation shafts and service tunnels to sniff out prey. Their cybernetics are not focused on brute strength, but on sensory enhancement. Their natural multi-lensed eyes are augmented with crude light images. Their olfactory organs are replaced with chemical sniffers and radiation detectors, allowing them to track a human crew by the faint irradiated trace of their bodies. Their fangs are often replaced with hissing injectors, ready to pump toxins or debilitating radiation into a victim. In battle, they are a harassing wave, charging first to break an enemy's line to sow terror and confusion before the heavy-hitting Clutchkin arrive to finish the slaughter. And who directs this tide? Who is the higher intelligence that points these biological weapons? This brings us to the masters of the swarm, the techno-shamans. Here the creature evolves from a simple beast to something far more sinister. The techno-shaman is the brain of the Rak'Gol. They are visually immediately distinct. They are larger than the Clutchkin, their bodies swollen with more complex and invasive cybernetics. Where a Clutchkin might have a single piston arm, the techno-shaman bristles with a dozen. Mechadendrites, crude parodies of a tech priest's sacred tools, sprout from its back ending in welders' drills and static hissing vox grills. They often wear clothing not of cloth but of flesh. They drape themselves in cloaks of flayed skin, human elder orc it matters not, and hang trophies from their bodies' shattered aquilus, the skulls of their enemies, and broken pieces of high technology. They are not just leaders, they are priests. They are the high priests of the scrap heap, the cardinals of the blasphemous machine. Their role is twofold. First, they are the battlefield commanders. How do they command? Not with eloquent speech. They emit high-frequency, ear-splitting shrieks and bursts of static code from their vox grills. This is the Rak'Gol language in its most complex form. It is a stream of pure digital hate, an imperative that the simple minds of the Clutchkin cannot disobey. It is theorized they may also exude chemical pheromones, or even a low-level primitive psionic-like will, a dark synapse that binds the swarm to their purpose. Second, they are the broodminders. This is the most chilling aspect. They are the surgeons. They are the engineers. They are the ones who oversee the ritualistic cyber-augmentation of the entire swarm. They are the ones who hammer the bolts into the flesh, who weld the plates to the bone, who decide which Clutchkin gets upgraded and which is sent to the front line to die. They are the enforcers of the Rak'Got's twisted technological religion. They are not just intelligent. They are cunning. They are sadistic. A Clutchkin will kill you. A techno-shaman will unmake you. Finally, the FFG lore hints at even more obscure castes, names whispered in corrupted data logs found in the wrecks of their victims. The Pale Ones. The Howling Ones. What are they? We truly do not know. Pale Ones could be a pure strain of Rak'Gol, an albino, unaugmented form kept hidden deep in their lairs. Or more likely, they are the failures Rak'Gol so twisted by failed augmentations that they have become something else, mindless, screaming horrors kept in chains until they can be unleashed as terror weapons. And the Howling Ones. The name itself suggests a psychic power. Could this be a rare, emerging caste of true Rak'Toy psychers? Not the techno-psyker shaman, but a creature that can truly touch the warp. If so, what a horrifying thought. A mind of pure alien brutality and techno-obsession given the power to channel the Imperium. A howl of pure static hate and radiation made manifest as a psychic shockwave. This intricate, terrifyingly functional caste system is a dark mirror of other, more civilized races. The Toe have their ethereals guiding the other castes toward a greater good with philosophical control. The Rak'Gol have their techno-shamans driving their lesser castes toward a greater desecration with pain static and biological imperative. But the closest and most disturbing comparison is to the Tyranids. The techno-shaman is a synapse creature. The Clutchkin and Gorehounds are termagants and hormagaunts. They are mindless puppets directed by a higher hive mind-like consciousness. This leads to the final chilling question of their social structure. Is this hive natural? Did the Rak'Gol evolve this way, an insectile race from a toxic lost homeworld with their religion of scrap and radiation as their culture? Or Is this entire system artificial? Is this the rigid, purpose-built structure of a slave race? Are the techno-shamans merely the overseers, the middle management of the abattoir, taking their orders from something else? Something unseen. Something perhaps not even Rak'Gol at all. This rigid, purposeful structure, this hive may not be a sign of their own society, but the clearest evidence that they are, in fact, nothing more than a tool. We have dissected the monster's body. We have mapped its hive. Now we must attempt the impossible. We must venture inside its mind. What is the motive? What drives the Rak'Gol to wage this campaign of mindless, brutal terror? This more than their biology is the core of their enigma. This is where we separate simple monsters from cosmic horrors. If we try to apply human logic, we will fail. We must analyze their actions and try to build a psychological profile from the bloody evidence they leave behind. What is their prime directive? Is it simply to loot and pillage like the orc freebooters or the human pirates of the Expanse? At first glance, yes. They attack ships. They take things. But what they take and what they leave proves this theory false. A human pirate or an Eldar corsair will board a ship and seize its most valuable cargo. They will take the adamantium, the promethium, the archaeotech. They will plunder the treasuries for thrones and priceless artifacts. The Rak'Gol ignore all of this. Survivors have reported seeing Rak'Gol warriors stomp over piles of imperial currency, shatter priceless Xenos artifacts, and utterly ignore holds filled with valuable goods. What they do take is scrap. They rip wires from the walls. They tear out chunks of bulkhead. They steal broken engine components, shattered cogitator arrays, and anything made of metal. And most grotesquely, they take bone. They harvest skulls, femurs, and rib cages from their victims. This is not the motive of a pirate. This is the looting of a magpie building a nest of nightmares. They are gathering materials, not wealth. So if not profit, is it simple, mindless xenophobia? Is it an animalistic hatred of all other life? This gets us closer, but it is still incomplete. A xenophobic race like the brutal orcs simply wants to kill and dominate. They want a good fight. The Rak'Gol's actions are more personal. They are more hateful. They do not just kill the Xenos, which to them is everyone else. They desecrate, they mutilate, they remake. They take the symbols of their enemies, an Imperial Aquila, an Eldar rune, and they violate them, hammering their own crude scrap metal icons over them. This is not the action of a simple beast. This is the action of a zealot. This brings us to the most likely and most terrifying conclusion. The Rak'Gol are driven by a purpose. Their brutality is not chaos. It is ritual. They are on a crusade. A blasphemous, horrifying, anti-religious jihad. They are not just destroying, they are cleansing. But this is where we must confront the central defining contradiction of the Rak'Gol mind. This is the paradox that unlocks everything. They hate technology, and they worship technology. Let us be precise. The Rak'Gol despise complex, functional, sophisticated technology. They have a visceral, rabid, foaming-at-the-mouth hatred for it. A techno-shaman will order its clutchkin to ignore a fleeing, wounded crewman in order to systematically murder a ship's cogitator bank. They will spend hours not just disabling, but pulverizing an astropathic choir station. They will tear apart a Geller field projector with a fury that is almost personal. To them, a functioning, clean, efficient machine is an anathema. It is a religious offense. It is a symbol of an order they find repellent. And yet their entire existence is defined by technology. Their bodies are riddled with cybernetics. Their leaders are more machine than flesh. Their weapons are technological. They cannot function, they cannot be Rak'Gol without the very thing they seem to despise. How can we reconcile this? This is the key. This is not hypocrisy. This is dogma. The Rak'Gol do not hate the machine. They hate your machine. They hate the perfection of the machine. Think of it from their perspective, from their twisted, radiation-soaked religion. Technology to them must be sacred. And to be sacred, it must be broken. It must be paid for in flesh and pain. The holy machine is not the clean, efficient cogitator of the Adeptus Mechanicus, which performs its function perfectly. That to the Rak'Gol is a lie. It is an abomination. The holy machine is the one that is forced onto the flesh. It is the hissing, leaking piston that is bolted to the bone. It is the cybernetic that causes pain, that degrades the flesh, that visibly fails. This is their theology. The only true technology is technology born of sacrifice. They are not improving themselves with cybernetics. They are sanctifying their flesh by desecrating it with the machine. When they attack an Imperial ship, they are not just destroying its systems. They are performing an exorcism. They are liberating the machine spirits from the sin of functionality. They smash the cogitator and then they bless its shattered components by incorporating them into their own bodies or into their grotesque scrap totems. They are a cargo cult from hell. They are enraged by the technology of others because it is easy. It has not been earned through the ritual of pain and self-mutilation. This reframes their entire psychology. They are not mindless beasts. They are the most disciplined of zealots. What then of their emotions? Do they feel joy? No, the concept seems alien. Do they feel fear? No, as we have seen, they are incapable of self-preservation. The only emotion ever recorded from a Rak'Gol is rage. But it is not the hot, passionate, blood-boiling rage of a Kroniki berserker. It is not the joyful, anarchic rage of an orc. It is a cold rage. It is a hissing rage. It is the static-filled, grinding, mechanical rage of a machine that has been given just enough life to hate. It is the rage of the zealot who sees a galaxy full of heretics. It is the rage of a creature in constant agonizing pain from its own sacred implants, a pain it projects onto all of existence. Their language, the clicks, the hisses, the static shrieks of the techno-shamans, is a perfect reflection of this mind. It is not a language of negotiation or philosophy or art. It is a language of imperatives. It is a stream of pure digital malice. It is the sound of function, not thought. It is the sound of pure, unadulterated hate. If the Rak'Gol mind is driven by a hateful, paradoxical dogma, then their battlefield actions are its sermons. Their religion is not one of prayer, faith, or contemplation. It is a religion of action. It is a faith expressed through pure, unadulterated desecration. Let us examine the aftermath of a Rak'Gol attack, a ritual site. They do not simply kill and leave. They perform. Their ritual behavior is hideously precise. They mutilate the dead, but this is not the random butchery of a beast. It is a systematic disassembly. As we have seen, they harvest bones. Skulls are prized, femurs are taken, rib cages are cracked open and emptied. Flesh is simply torn away and discarded, left to rot. But they also mutilate the technology. And this is where their ritual becomes clear. They will take a fallen Imperial guardsman and perform a dark parody of their own cybernetic process on his corpse. They will rip the lasgun from his hands, break it open, and hammer the shattered components into his corpse. They will replace his severed arm with a piece of broken pipe. They will drill out his eyes and fill the sockets with shattered glass and sparking wires. This is not an act of war. This is an act of conversion. They are sanctifying the dead, blessing them with their own twisted faith, remaking them in their own degraded image. They are in their own minds liberating the corpse from the sin of its biological purity. And their desecration extends to locations. They are drawn like magnets to places of order and faith. A Rak'Gol swarm will bypass a crew barracks to launch a suicidal assault on a ship's chapel. They will ignore an armory to defile the quarters of a ship's navigator. The sight of an Imperial Aquila, a symbol of perfect divine order, throws them into a religious frenzy. They do not just tear these symbols down, they remake them. They will capture a ship's chapel, slaughter the ecclesiarchs, and then begin their work. The holy altar will be overturned. The golden Aquila on the wall will be smeared with oil, blood, and waste. And then they will build. This is where we see their most disturbing, most tangible form of worship, the creation of their shrines. Imagine walking into the desecrated chapel. In the center where the altar once stood is a new structure. It is a totem, a scrap shrine of pure blasphemy. It is a towering, precarious, horrifying sculpture. It is made from all the things they have liberated. The base is a pile of shattered pews, broken cogitator casings, and torn apart holy texts. From this, a central spire rises a spine made of welded-together rebar pipes and the barrels of broken weapons. And woven into this metal skeleton are the bones. Dozens of skulls, human xenos, perhaps even Rak'Gol, are lashed to the structure with bundles of wire. Severed arms, some still clad in armor, others cybernetically improved with jagged metal spikes, are positioned like the arms of a grotesque saint. Rib cages are hung like obscene decorations. The entire thing thrums. A techno-shaman has wired it into the ship's power, or perhaps given it its own leaking toxic reactor. Sparks fly from it. Crude optical lenses jammed into the sockets of the skulls glow with a faint green light. A Vox grill torn from a communications station is nailed to its center, emitting a constant low-frequency, static howl, a broadcast of pure hate. What is this? What is the purpose of this horrifying artifact? Is it a monument to their victory, a territorial marker like a predator spraying its scent? Yes, but it is more than that. Is it a form of cargo cult, as we've theorized? Are they attempting to emulate the imperial faith they see? Are they trying to build their own god-emperor out of the scrap and bone they hold sacred? This is a chilling, compelling theory. They see the Imperium worshipping a corpse on a golden throne, and so they, in their own twisted way, build their own god, a corpse god of scrap. Or is it an idol? Is it a physical representation of the entity they truly worship? This is where we must draw a critical, absolute distinction. This is not chaos. An inexperienced inquisitor, upon seeing this grotesque display of ritual slaughter, bone totems, and frenzied zealotry, would immediately declare Khorne or chaos undivided, and they would be dangerously fundamentally wrong. There are no symbols of the ruinous powers. There is no 8-pointed star. There is no brass and blood aesthetic of Khorne. There is no putrid, life-affirming rot of Nurgle. There is no obsessive, perfect sensation-seeking of Slaanesh. There is no complex, mutating magic of Tzeentch. The magic of the Rak'Gol is the magic of the broken machine. Their faith is in degradation. Chaos is at its heart about emotion and ascension of a sort. It is about apotheosis, about becoming more a demon prince, a powerful sorcerer, an ecstatic killer. The Rak'Gol faith is about dissension. It is about becoming less. It is about descending into the purity of the broken, pained, and degraded machine. It is a cold, static-filled, nihilistic creed. Where a chaos shrine pulses with the raw, living energy of the warp, a Rak'Gol shrine hisses with radiation. It smells of ozone and rust. It is a dead thing. It is an anti-shrine. This is what makes them so alien. They are a religious race whose god is seemingly the concept of entropy itself. Their rituals are an attempt to accelerate that entropy, to bless the galaxy, by tearing it down, breaking its order, and reducing it to a state of painful radioactive and sacred ruin. They are not merely Xenos. They are a rival theology, one so alien and so antithetical to both the Imperial Creed and the lures of chaos that we have no counter-argument for it. We only have bolt rounds. The Rak'Gol are a plague, and a plague must have a vector. A monster confined to a single world is a problem. A monster that can cross the stars is a cataclysm. The Rak'Gol are a void-faring race, and their fleet, their collection of starships, is a perfect, terrifying reflection of their blasphemous creed. Once again, we must confront the central paradox. How does a race that despises complex functional technology, a race that murders cogitators, manage to operate and maintain a fleet of faster-than-light capable starships? The answer is the same as their cybernetics. They do not create, they corrupt, they do not build, they desecrate. The Rak'Gol fleet is not a fleet of uniform manufactured vessels. It is a pirate fleet in the truest, most parasitic sense of the word. They are a collection of captured ships, stolen hulls, and hollowed-out asteroids, all reforged in their own twisted image. Let us analyze their known ship classes, names given by the terrified rogue traders of the Coronis Expanse. We have the Butcher-class escort, the Carrion-class cruiser. The names are not imperial designations, they are warnings. They are butchers and carrion things that feed on the dead. Imagine an Imperial sword-class frigate, A marvel of technology, a sharp, deadly, efficient weapon of the Emperor. Now imagine what happens when a swarm of Rak'Gol captures it. The conversion begins. The Imperial Aquila on the prow is torn off, replaced by a 50-meter-tall scrap totem of bone and welded metal. The clean armored hull is violated. Crude, jagged spikes of rebar and metal are welded on at random, giving the ship a hedgehog-like appearance. Hull breaches are not repaired. They are patched with mismatched stolen plates of armor, hammered on and sealed with crude, bubbling welds. The ship's profile is ruined. It is no longer a sleek sword. It is a lumpy, asymmetrical, diseased thing. It is a butcher. This is their design philosophy. They take the heretical, functional technology of other races and they degrade it. They sanctify it by making it crude, ugly, and painful. Their ships are not just rusty. They are caked in filth rust and frozen effluvia. They do not hum with the sound of a well-tuned plasma reactor. They hiss. They groan. They leak. A Rak'Gol Carrion-class cruiser is a floating cathedral of scrap, a captured Imperial vessel that has been so heavily improved that its original class is unrecognizable. It is a flying graveyard, a void-faring space hulk of their own making. This parasitic nature answers the key question: do they build their own ships? The answer is almost certainly no. To build a starship, a warp drive, a Geller field generator. This requires a level of clean, complex, and functional industry that their entire religion forbids. It is far more holy for them to take a sinful ship from a lesser race and break it, purify it, desecrate it into a form that they find acceptable. This philosophy extends to their shipboard weaponry. Do not expect the elegant long-range lance batteries of the Imperial Navy or the complex macro-cannon arrays. The Rak'Gol despise such impersonal warfare. Their weapons are crude close-range and designed for one thing: to cripple and contaminate. Their primary long-range weapon is the rad bomb. This is not a precision torpedo. It is a massive, unguided, dirty bomb. It is a warhead packed with radioactive waste-stolen reactor cores and shrapnel. When it detonates, it does not just inflict kinetic damage, it poisons a region of space. It is a weapon of area denial. An enemy ship caught in the blast wave finds its sensors blinded by static, its hull dangerously irradiated, and its crew dying of radiation sickness inside their own ship. For closer work, they use scrap launchers. These are not cannons. They are massive electromagnetic shotguns. They fire canisters of shrapnel asteroid fragments, the debris of their last battle-broken machinery bones, at high velocity. It is a weapon designed to shred armor plating at close range, to tear open a hull like their razors tear open flesh. And of course, their ships themselves are weapons. A Rak'Gol ship is in essence a flying, unshielded reactor. They leak a constant, debilitating aura of radiation. Getting close to a Rak'Gol fleet is a death sentence for your crew. The ship's internal rad counters will scream into the red. Geller fields flicker. Augers fill with static. The Rak'Gol are bringing their toxic homeworld to you. But all of this, the bombs, the scrap launchers, the radiation aura, is just the prelude. It is the tenderizer before the main course. The Rak'Gol have one and only one true space combat tactic. It is not subtle, it is not clever, it is suicidal. Ramming and boarding. A Rak'Gol fleet does not engage in graceful broadside duels. It does not maneuver for tactical advantage. When its techno-shaman masters detect an enemy, the entire swarm charges. Imagine the scene from an Imperial bridge. The auger array blurred with static shows a half-dozen contacts. They are not forming a battle line. They are accelerating directly at you. The Butcher-class escorts, smaller and faster, will literally fly in front of their own cruiser, sacrificing themselves, soaking up lance fire and torpedoes just to get the main Carrion-class vessels into range. The Imperial captain fires everything he has. Last blasts scorch their hulls. Torpedoes rip open their crude plating. But they do not stop. They do not care. They are a swarm of hissing, toxic comets, driven by a single fanatical imperative. And then the impact, the screaming alarms, the the groan of tortured metal. The Rak'Gol ship, its jagged spikes and welded-on prows, digging deep into the Imperial vessel's hull latches on. Those crude spikes are hooks. The ships are now locked together, a predator and its prey. This is the worst-case scenario. This is what every rogue trader dreads. The void battle is over. Now the horror begins. The Rak'Gol do not need to win the ship-to-ship fight. They just need to get close. The moment the ships are locked, the boarding torpedoes fire. These are not elegant weapons. They are massive manned drills packed with clutchkin that smash through the already weakened hull. Breaches are forced, airlocks are torn open, and the flood is unleashed. It is not a boarding party of elite warriors. It is an infestation. It is a tide of thousands of eight-limbed, scuttling, hissing horrors. The clutchkin, the gorehounds, led by the towering, shrieking techno-shamans, pour into the ship. Their rad cleansers fire in the close confines, cooking defenders in their own armor. Their razors roar to life, tearing through bulkheads and flesh. The battle is no longer a void war. It has become a desperate hand-to-hand slaughter in the dark, irradiated, smoke-filled corridors of a dying ship. This is the goal. This is the entire purpose of their fleet. Their ships are not vessels. They are delivery systems for their true weapon, the swarm. They turn every space battle into a nightmarish, close-quarters charnel house, a place where their fanatical, animalistic rage can be unleashed. They do not want to destroy your ship from afar. They want to get inside it. They want to kill its crew. They want to desecrate its chapel. And they want to liberate its heretical, functional machine spirit peace by screaming broken peace. So where does this void-faring plague make its home? A race of such numbers, such singular purpose, must have a heart. It must have a source. But the Rak'Gol do not have an empire. They do not claim territory in the way the Tau or the Imperium do. They do not build shining cities or establish colonies. They have a hunting ground. Their territory is defined only by the reach of their fleets and the bloody trail of their victims. As we know, their primary operational theater is the Coronis Expanse, the lawless, uncharted void beyond the Calixis sector. But their presence and their threat is also felt in the wider, even more mysterious region known as the Halo Stars, a vast, ancient and thinly populated stretch of space at the galaxy's rim. Why here? The answer is a grim tactical one. These are the forgotten corners of the galaxy. The light of the Astronomicon, the Emperor's divine beacon, is weak and guttering here. Warp travel is a constant, terrifying gamble. The Imperial Navy's patrols are few and far between, their resources stretched impossibly thin. These are regions where a ship, a colony, or even an entire civilization can vanish, and it might be centuries before the Imperium even notices. It is a realm of shadows, a place of rumor perfect for a race of ambush predators to thrive. But there is another more compelling reason. The Halo Stars and the Coronis Expanse are old. They are a galactic graveyard littered with the ruins of pre-imperial human civilizations, and more importantly, the silent tomb worlds of countless other Xenos races. These regions are a treasure trove of lost technology, dormant space hulks, and ancient secrets. For a race of techno-zealots and scrap-harvesting parasites, this is not a graveyard. It is a paradise. It is a smorgasbord of heretical technology just waiting to be liberated. They do not maintain borders, but they do establish lairs. So what do these nests look like? What have the few brave or foolish rogue traders and Ordo Xenos kill teams found? They have found that the Rak'Gol, true to their nature, do not build. They infest. They are like hermit crabs, but for fortifications. They will seize a pre-existing structure, an abandoned orbital station, a dormant Mechanicus research post, a hollowed-out asteroid mining facility, and they will remake it. This is not just occupation. It is conversion. The station's clean plasteel corridors are not repaired. They are caked in layers of filth, industrial slime, and biomechanical effluent. The defense systems are not brought back online. They are degraded. The last turrets are torn out, replaced with crude rad cleanser emitters and scrap launchers. And of course, the shrines. Every captured station is turned into a temple. The command deck, the medici bay, the habitation domes, all become home to towering, nightmarish totems of bone scrap and screaming, irradiated metal. The very air hisses with radiation and the constant clicking, omnipresent static of the swarm. Their most feared lairs, however, are the space hulks. These vast galaxy-drifting conglomerates of lost ships, wrecked stations, and asteroid fragments are already places of sheer terror. To the Rak'Gol, they are prefabricated mobile fortresses. A space hulk that drifts into the coronous expanse and is claimed by a Rak'Gol swarm becomes one of the greatest threats in the sector. It is an unkillable, unpredictable hive ship, bristling with their crude weapons and housing millions of warriors, a carrion ship the size of a moon. And what of planets have they claimed any? The reports are chilling. They do not colonize worlds. They butcher them. When a Rak'Gol swarm descends on a habitable world, it is not to live there. It is to harvest. They will systematically exterminate the population, strip mine the cities for metal and scrap, and harvest the bones of the dead. The planet is left as a charnel house, a term used by Inquisitor Clist in a classified report. It is a dead, irradiated rock, its cities reduced to vast scrap heaps, its atmosphere poisoned. The Rak'Gol then move on, leaving the corpse of the world as a monument to their passing. This all leads to the final terrifying question. Where do they come from? Do they have a home world? Is there a Rak'Golia, a single central planet that serves as the heart of their race, the source of their swarms? It is possible that they are a purely nomadic, fleet-based race. A species of void-born parasites that have lived this way for millennia, capturing ships, breeding in the dark, and propagating like a virus. This would explain their parasitic nature. They are the ships they capture. Their home is simply the last vessel they conquered. A related theory is that they are refugees, that they are not expanding into the expanse, but fleeing into it. Perhaps they are running from an even greater horror, something that destroyed their original home, forcing them into this parasitic, nomadic existence. What could be so terrifying that it makes the Rak'Gol run? It is a thought that few in the Ordo Xenos care to entertain. But there is one piece of evidence, one singular defining trait that points to a more concrete and far more horrifying origin. The radiation, their rad cleansers, their rad bombs, their leaking toxic ships, their own seemingly total immunity to radiation poisoning. This is not a choice. This is biology. This points with chilling certainty to a homeworld that is by any Imperial standard a death world of the most extreme category. Imagine a planet in a constant state of nuclear winter, a world so close to a dying radioactive star, or so poisoned by some ancient planet-killing war from millennia ago that its very surface is a sea of lethal radiation. A place where the air is poison, the rocks hiss with gamma rays, and the only life that could possibly evolve would be this: creatures that feed on radiation. Creatures that see heat and gamma bursts as light. Creatures whose only culture is the desperate, painful, and constant act of surviving an environment that is actively trying to kill them by replacing their rotting, irradiated flesh with crude, bolted-on machines. This is not just a theory. It is the most logical and most terrifying explanation. They do not have a homeworld in the way we understand it. They are their homeworld. They are a walking, sentient, spacefaring apocalypse. They are not just using radiation as a weapon. They are sharing it. We now arrive at the darkest, deepest, and most critical question of the entire Rak'Gol enigma. It is the question that haunts the Ordo Xenos and fuels the frantic, terrified speculation of every rogue trader who has survived an encounter. Are they truly in control of themselves? This is the great mystery. The Rak'Gol are a walking, shrieking contradiction. Their actions in battle are those of a mindless, suicidal, berserking animal. They charge into gunfire. They show no self-preservation. They seem driven by nothing more than pure, unfiltered rage. And yet, their society is a rigid, complex, purposeful caste system. Their technology, while crude, is highly specialized, particularly their unique mastery of radiation. Their ships, while stolen, are modified for a singular, brutal, and effective tactical doctrine. And their religion, their core psychology, is a complex, paradoxical, and dogmatic creed, the hatred of pure tech and the worship of degraded tech. Mindless beasts do not have dogma. Berserkers do not have a specialized, rigid caste system. Suicidal animals do not modify starships for a specific unified purpose. This contradiction, the mindless warrior directed by a complex purpose, is the single greatest piece of evidence that the Rak'Gol are not their own masters. It suggests that the Clutchkin are just animals. It suggests the techno-shamans are perhaps slightly more intelligent animals, but are still just enforcers of a will that is not their own. It suggests the entire Rak'Gol race is a tool, a living weapon, a slave race engineered or enthralled, pointed at the galaxy by an unseen hand. Their entire bizarre religion of scrap, their hatred of complex technology, it may not be a faith at all. It may be a control mechanism, a set of fail-safe commands seared into their very DNA to ensure they can use technology but never master it, to ensure they can never become advanced enough to threaten their true masters. So if they are slaves who holds the chain, the Fantasy Flight Games lore, the very source of their existence, is filled with dark whispers and potential suspects. Let us begin the Inquisition. Theory 1, the Sloth, the Maggot Men. First, we must identify this suspect. If the Rak'Gol are the boogeymen of the Coronis Expanse, the Sloth are the fear that created them. They are another deep lore Xenos race from the FFG supplements. They are not warriors. They are infiltrators. Imagine a creature that is not a single being, but a colony. A sloth is a sentient swarm of millions of tiny, maggot-like creatures which can flow and coalesce into a vaguely humanoid shape, often disguising itself in heavy, concealing robes. They are masters of bioengineering, biotechnology, and most horrifyingly of flesh crafting. They are the consummate puppet masters. Their currency is not gold or power. Their currency is flesh. They are galactic organ traders, purveyors of exotic Xenos body parts, slaves, and genetic material. They operate from the absolute darkest shadows, using layers upon layers of proxies. They would never be so crude as to start a war. They would simply buy, bribe, or replace a planet's governor with a perfect flesh-crafted duplicate and take over the world without a single shot fired. They are intelligent, ancient, patient, and utterly purely evil. Now the evidence for this theory. The Sloth need muscle. They are physically vulnerable, relying on their intelligence. What if the Rak'Gol are their creation? What if the Sloth, as masters of bioengineering, designed the Rak'Gol race from some unknown primal stock? It would explain everything. They would have created a perfect, self-replicating army. A race of warriors biologically programmed with a rigid caste system. A race given just enough intelligence to operate crude technology, but instilled with a fanatical religious hatred of advanced technology to ensure they could never evolve to challenge their masters. The Rak'Gol's motive to harvest scrap and bone could be a corrupted directive from their sloth masters, who are themselves obsessed with harvesting flesh and biological material. The Rak'Gol are simply the garbage collectors, the brutish shock troops sent in to clean up a system after the sloth have subtly extracted what they truly want. But now the evidence against. This is a powerful, compelling argument. The styles are completely different. The sloth are subtle. They are scalpels. They work in secret. They abhor attention. The Rak'Gol are a sledgehammer. They are a roaring, static-hissing, radiation-spewing neon sign that screams, "Invasion to the entire sector." Why would a race of shadow puppets create a tool that is so mind-numbingly loud? It draws the exact kind of attention from rogue traders, from the Inquisition, from the Imperial Navy, that the Sloth spend millennia trying to avoid. Furthermore, the Rak'Gol's technology, their crude, bolted-on, rusty cybernetics, is a stylistic insult to the Sloth's art. The Sloth are masters of flesh crafting, of seamless, perfect biological integration. The Rak'Gol's work is the antithesis of this. It is ugly, it is crude, it is broken. The theory is compelling, but the vast, glaring mismatch in modus operandi makes it difficult to prove. Theory 2, a Citan, specifically the Void Dragon. This is perhaps the most thematically fascinating theory. To analyze it, we must understand the Citan. The Citan are the star gods. They are non-corporeal, godlike beings of pure energy from the dawn of time. They are the beings who tricked the ancient Necrontyr race into abandoning their flesh, transferring their minds into living metal bodies, and becoming the soulless automatons we know as the Necrons. The Void Dragon is one of the most powerful and most mysterious of these Citan. It is the Dragon of Mars. Millennia ago, it was defeated and imprisoned within the planet Mars in the Noctis Labyrinth. The entire Adeptus Mechanicus, the priesthood of Mars, is in fact an unwitting cult built around this slumbering prisoner. Their omnisire, their machine god, is very likely the Void Dragon itself. The Void Dragon is the machine. It is the living embodiment of technology. Its dreams, its slumbering whispers are theorized to be the source of all advanced human technological inspiration. Now look at the Rak'Gol. Their entire existence, their entire religion revolves around the machine. This cannot be a coincidence. The Adeptus Mechanicus, under the pure influence of the dragon's dream, worships the perfection of the machine. They seek communion with it, ascension into it. What if the Rak'Gol are a different echo? What if they are a corrupted signal, a failed attempt by the Void Dragon, or one of its shards to create another race of machine worshippers? This theory brilliantly explains the Rak'Gol paradox. Their hatred of complex, pure technology is a perversion of the Mechanicus' worship. It is a dogma gone wrong. It is a zealous, insane jealousy. They see the pure machines of the Imperium as heretical because they are not the true machines of their own faith, the machines broken and fused with flesh and paid for in pain. They are in essence a dark, twisted, rabid parody of the tech priests of Mars. They are the Void Dragon's other failed children. But what is the evidence against? Simply put, there is no direct evidence. This is a purely thematic, albeit beautiful theory. The influence of the Citan is almost exclusively tied to the Necrons. Their technology gauss energy living metal temporal manipulation is clean, impossibly advanced, and self-repairing. The Rak'Gol are not. They are biological. They are messy. They are crude. They bleed, they breed, and their technology leaks. If the Void Dragon signal creates anything, it should create Necrons, or at least something like them. The Rak'Gol are physically and technologically the opposite of a Necron. The thematic link is powerful, but the physical link is non-existent. Theory 3, the Dark Mechanicum Chaos. This is an easy, almost lazy theory, but it must be examined. The Dark Mechanicum are the heretics, the tech priests who fell to the worship of chaos. They specialize in the unholy fusion of demon machine and flesh. The Rak'Gol are a fusion of machine and flesh. Their creations are blasphemous. Ergo, they must be a Dark Mechanicum creation. Perhaps they were a new breed of Skitarii, a biological shock trooper, an experiment that broke free from its masters and now wages war on all technology, both pure and chaotic. The evidence for this is purely aesthetic machine plus flesh. Blasphemy. The evidence against is overwhelming. As we have established in exhaustive detail, the Rak'Gol are not chaotic. There are no signs of the ruinous powers. None. No 8-pointed stars, no demonic possessions, no warp energy. The energy of a Rak'Gol is radiation. Their magic is entropy. A Dark Mechanicum creation. A demon engine, a corrupted Skitarii, is drenched in the warp. It pulses with imperial energy. The Rak'Gol are by contrast conspicuously clean of it. Their religion is their own, a cold, static-filled creed of scrap and decay, not a hot, passionate submission to the chaos gods. This theory simply does not fit the spiritual or energetic evidence. Theory 4, a lost Necron dynasty, e.g. the Flare virus. This final theory attempts to bridge the gap in the Citan theory. What if the Rak'Gol are Necrons? Specifically, what if they are a lost dynasty so utterly afflicted by the Flare virus that they have become something new? The Flayer virus is the curse of the Citan Landugor. It is a madness that infects Necrons, making them believe they are still flesh. It drives them to kill biological creatures, flay them, and wear their skin dripping in blood in a grotesque parody of their lost lives. They are driven to eat and drink the gore of their victims. The pro-argument is that this explains the madness, the close-quarters obsession, and the harvesting bones instead of skin. Perhaps this is a dynasty that has been flaying for so long they've forgotten they are machines. Their attempts at cybernetics are their broken, insane attempts to repair themselves using the flesh scrap and bone of their victims. The con argument is frankly based in physical reality. This theory is the weakest of all. All evidence autopsies, survivor reports, states the Rak'Gol are biological. They bleed a dark ichor. They have flesh, hide, and sinew. They have a caste system that implies breeding and birth broodminders. Necrons are machines. The Flayer virus makes them act like ghouls. It does not turn them into biological ghouls. The Rak'Gol's technology is also a complete mismatch. A degraded Necron is still a Necron. It still carries a Gauss flare, still has a self-repairing metal body. It does not bolt rusty rebar to its arm. The puzzle remains. Each theory explains one part of the Rak'Gol, but fails to explain the whole. The Sloth explain the slave army, but not the style. The Void Dragon explains the religion, but not the biology. Chaos explains the blasphemy, but not the motive. This web of contradictions, this perfect lack of a single clean answer, is what keeps the enigma alive. It forces us to look at two more possibilities, two that are perhaps even more frightening. All the theories we have explored, the Sloth, the Citan, the Dark Mechanicum, share one common thread. They are rooted in the present darkness of the 41st Millennium. They presuppose a master that is currently active. But what if the chain on the Rak'Gol's collar is not a chain but a fossil? What if their masters are not just hidden but dead? This brings us to our fifth and perhaps most mind-bending hypothesis. To explore it, we must rewind the galactic clock, not by 10,000 years to the Horus Heresy, but by 60 million years. We must go back to the dawn of all sentient life. We must go back to the war in heaven. We must talk about the old ones. Before the Imperium, before the Eldar Empire, before the Citan shattered into shards, the old ones were the first true masters of this galaxy. They were a reptilian, godlike race of almost limitless power. They were the masters of genetics, the artisans of life itself. They could travel the warp at will, and they seeded the galaxy with life. But they were not alone. They entered into a cataclysmic conflict, the war in heaven against the ancient soulless Necronter, and their new masters, the star-eating godlike Citan. This was not a war of bolters and ships. It was a war of creation. The old ones, the supreme bioengineers, fought their war by creating new sentient warrior races from scratch. Their most famous creations, the Eldari, the race that would one day become the Eldar, crafted as elegant psychic warriors, and their greatest creation, the Krork, a race of perfect, genetically pure, massive, hyper-intelligent, green-skinned warriors designed for one purpose: to fight and win. A race whose devolved, degraded descendants are now known to us as the Orcs. The old ones built living weapons. Now let us look at the Rak'Gol. This hypothesis is one of the most popular and most elegant fan theories born from the deepest corners of the lore. What if the Rak'Gol are simply another of the old ones' creations? What if they are a failed experiment? A niche weapon, a Krork beater that was either abandoned or designed for a very, very specific purpose? This theory at a stroke solves every single contradiction in the Rak'Gol enigma. First, their caste system. Their hive-like insectoid eusocial structure with broodminders, techno-shamans, and clutchkin is not something that evolves randomly. It screams intelligent design. It is the very hallmark of an old one creation, a race bioengineered from the ground up to fulfill specific preordained roles. It is efficient, it is functional, it is purpose-built. Second, their radiation immunity. The Old Ones were fighting a war against the Satan beings who could unleash stellar radiation, weaponized gravity, and fundamental forces of physics. Why not design a race that could thrive in the toxic, irradiated hellscapes left behind by Satan weaponry, a race that could live on the Necron tomb worlds that were even then saturated with deadly energies? But the final, most brilliant piece of this puzzle is the Rak'Gol's central psychological paradox. Their insane, fanatical religious hatred of complex, pure, functional technology. Why would the Old Ones program this? Because who were they fighting, the Necrons? A race that is the absolute pinnacle of cold, perfect, soulless, sophisticated technology. A race of self-repairing, living metal automatons. Imagine for a moment the genius of the Old Ones. They create a fast, brutal, self-replicating biological swarm, but they need to give it a seek and destroy protocol. They need to give it an instinct, so they weave it into their very DNA, into their soul. They give them a singular, overriding genetic imperative. Sophisticated non-biological technology is anathema. It is heresy. Find it. Tear it apart. Break it. This religion of the Rak'Gol, it is not a religion. It is a failsafe. It is a piece of corrupted programming. It is a 60-million-year-old combat directive left running on a loop. The Rak'Gol are an anti-Necron weapon. This explains why they hate the clean technology of the Imperium and the Elder. Their ancient programming cannot tell the difference. It just sees complex functional machine, and the destroy imperative kicks in. And what of their own crude, degraded, painful cybernetics? This is the most tragic part of the theory. This is the loophole. Their programming screams at them to destroy pure tech. But they are intelligent enough barely to know they need technology to survive, to patch their wounds, to build their ships. So their techno-shamans, in a feat of breathtakingly stupid, yet brilliant lateral thinking, found a way. If they break the technology first, if they make it rusty, leaky, painful, and crude, it is no longer pure. It is no longer heretical. It is sanctified. It is theirs. They are obeying their imperative by desecrating the very technology they are forced to use. They are scratching their genetic itch by mutilating themselves. Now we must face the counter-argument. This is, as stated, purely a theory. It is a grand, unifying hypothesis beloved by lore masters. But there is not one single line of text in any FFG or GW book that ever links them. No Necron Codex mentions them. No Elder legend speaks of this other race. It is all conjecture. It is beautiful, it is elegant, and it is entirely 100% unproven. In the cold, hard archives of the Ordo Xenos, this theory is filed under speculation wild. But it remains the most compelling explanation because it feels true to the Grimdark universe. It reframes the Rak'Gol. They are not just monsters, they are a tragedy. They are a living echo of a war that ended 60 million years ago. They are a grey goo plague of abandoned biological weapons, still blindly, rabidly, hissingly fulfilling their final corrupted order forever. This leaves us with one final mundane, and perhaps most chilling possibility of all. What if we are wrong? What if all of this is wrong? We have chased the grand conspiracies. We have looked for the puppet masters in the shadows, from the maggot men of sloth to the slumbering star gods and the ancient ghosts of the old ones. These theories are complex, they are dramatic, and they are in their own way comforting. They are comforting because they imply order. They imply a reason. They suggest that if we could just find the source, kill the master, or understand the programming, the Rak'Gol problem could be solved. Now we must face the sixth and final hypothesis, the one that has no grand conspiracy, the one that is simple, mundane, and logical, and the one that is by far the most terrifying. Hypothesis 6. The Rak'Gol are exactly what they appear to be. There is no puppet master. There is no ancient programming. There is no grand external purpose. There is only the Rak'Gol. Let us for a moment accept this premise. What does it mean? It means the Rak'Gol evolved. They are a natural product of the universe. This forces us to return to the vision of their homeworld, not as a testing ground, but as a crucible. Imagine a planet that is by its very nature an engine of pure malice. A world orbiting a dying, angry star that bathes its surface in lethal mutagenic radiation. A world with a thin, toxic atmosphere where water is a chemical sludge and ground is a razor-sharp expanse of volcanic irradiated glass. A world of constant agonizing pain. This is the womb that birthed the Rak'Gol. In this environment, life itself is a war. Every creature that crawls from the sludge is a monster, locked in a billion-year arms race. Evolution here is not about adaptation, it is about desperation. From this hell, a proto-Rak'Gol emerges. Its pale, thick, stone-like hide is not a choice. It is a necessity, the only biological substance that can offer even a moment's protection from the constant searing radiation. Its multiple lidless eyes are not for seeing light. They are for seeing heat and gamma bursts, the only vision that matters. Its 8-limbed scuttling form is the most stable, efficient way to cross the treacherous, shattered landscape. This is their natural form, a monster born of a monstrous world. Now let us introduce their religion. How does it begin? It begins with survival. On this world, flesh fails. It is weak. The radiation gives you cancers. The toxic air rots your lungs. The jagged ground tears your limbs. Life for the proto-Rak'Gol is a constant, agonizing process of decay. But they are intelligent, cunning. They discover something. They find the wreck of some ancient, long-forgotten ship that crashed on their world millennia ago. They find metal. A Rak'Gol's arm is torn off by a predator. It is dying. But a proto-techno-shaman takes a piece of sharp, rusted bulkhead from the wreck, heats it with a volcanic vent, and hammers it into the wound, sealing it. The creature lives. A Rak'Gol's lungs are liquefying from the atmosphere. The shaman takes a broken filter box from the wreck, cracks the creature's ribs open, and shoves it in. It is agony. It is butchery. But the creature can breathe. This is the birth of their creed. The cybernetics are not a choice. They are a desperate, painful necessity. Their crude style is not an aesthetic. It is the only style they know, born of scrap and desperation. And what happens over 10,000 years to a race whose entire existence is defined by this single brutal equation? Flesh is weak. Flesh is rot. Flesh is failure. The machine is strong. The machine is pure. The machine is survival. Pain is the ritual that binds them. The act of necessity becomes culture. The culture becomes dogma. The dogma becomes religion. The techno-shaman is no longer just a surgeon. He is the high priest who performs the sacred rite of salvation, the holy act of driving the weak flesh from the body and blessing it with the pure machine. And their hatred of our technology, the pure, clean, functional tech of the Imperium. This theory explains it perfectly. It is not envy. It is righteous religious fury. When they see a tech priest's gleaming, perfect, painless augmentation, they do not see a kindred spirit. They see a heretic. They see a blasphemer. They see a creature that has received the gift of the machine without the sacred sacrifice of pain. They see a technology that is easy, clean, and unearned. It is an insult to their entire existence, an existence defined by the agony they must endure for their cybernetics. Their rage is the rage of the zealot. They are not just destroying our cogitators, they are purifying them, exorcising the sin of perfection and ease with their holy, crude, painful scrap. This is the thematic core of the Grimdark. This theory is the most terrifying because it offers no solution. There is no puppet master to kill. There is no ancient program to debug. There is no grand cosmic reason for their existence. The universe, in its infinite cold and uncaring randomness, simply produced this. It produced a race of 8-limbed radiation-immune techno-zealot parasitic berserking monsters by accident. The Rak'Gol are not an aberration. They are a natural outcome. They are a testament to the 41st millennium's fundamental truth that life is not sacred, that civilization is an illusion, and that for every species like humanity clinging to order and reason, the galaxy has naturally evolved 1,000 species of pure, incomprehensible alien horror to tear it all down. They are not a mystery to be solved. They are a fact of the universe. They represent the true unknowable Xenos. They are not monsters because they were made that way. They are monsters because that is what they are, and there is no counter-argument to that. There is only survival. The Rak'Gol are a fact, a terrible radioactive and hateful fact of the Coronis expanse, but they are not the only fact. The 41st Millennium is a crowded, violent place, a galaxy teeming with ancient empires, rising powers, and monstrous swarms, all convinced of their own manifest destiny. The Rak'Gol, in their blind, fanatical crusade of scrap and bone, will inevitably and violently collide with these other powers. How do these terrible interactions play out? What happens when this unstoppable fanatical force meets the other immovable fanatical objects of the galaxy? vs. the Imperium of man, the primary foe. This is the most common, most brutal confrontation. For the Imperium, the rogue traders, the Imperial Navy, the lone squads of guardsmen, the Rak'Gol, are the ultimate Xenos Horribilis. Imagine a squad of Cadian shock troopers, the finest non-augmented soldiers in the galaxy, setting up a kill zone in the shattered corridor of a void station. They are disciplined. They are brave. Their faith is in their laser guns, their flamer, and their emperor. They hear at first a clicking, a sound like a million insects overlaid with the hiss of static. Then they see them. A wave of pale, 8-limbed horrors scuttling over the ceiling and floor, their many eyes glowing with a sick green light. The Cadian sergeant screams. Fire! The corridor erupts. Las beams, bright red lances of faith, spear into the darkness. They strike the Rak'Gol hide, scorching them, but the creatures do not stop. The Clutchkin charge through the hail of fire, and then the Rak'Gol respond. The techno-shaman at the back shrieks, and the rad cleansers fire. A wave of sickly, invisible energy washes over the Imperial line. The guardsmen's laser guns die. Their power packs spark and fail. Their vox links scream with static. The soldier with the flamer feels his skin begin to cook inside his flak armor. The air smells of roasted meat and ozone. The line is broken. The Rak'Gol swarm is on them. Razors roaring, tearing the disciplined Cadian line into a red ruin in seconds. Now what of the Angels of Death? What happens when the Rak'Gol meet a space marine? This is a battle of titans. A 5-man tactical squad of the Ultramarines teleports onto a captured bridge, their bolters already roaring. They are post-human perfection. Their armor is sacred. Their doctrine is flawless. A Rak'Gol Clutchkin charges. The Marine raises his bolter fires. The mass-reactive shell hits the Xenos in the chest. It detonates. Ichor bone and crude cybernetics spray. And the creature keeps coming. It lunges its 4 scythe-like arms, reaching its remaining limbs, driving it forward. It takes 2 more bolts, 3 more before it finally collapses, its dead, multi-eyed gaze fixed on the Marine. The Marine Sergeant, a veteran of 100 wars, ignites his power sword and charges a techno-shaman. It is a duel of opposites. The Marine is all grace, his blue armor, a blur his sword, a hum of perfect disruptive energy. The shaman is a brute. It is a 9-foot-tall tower of scrap bone and hate. It swings a massive 2-handed razor, a weapon of pure, vibrating entropy. The power sword slices through one of the shaman's cybernetic arms. Sparks fly. But the shaman does not flinch. It does not feel the pain. It shrieks a burst of static that rattles the Marine's helmet augers and brings its other 3 arms, plus its crude mechadendrites, to bear. This is the Rak'Gol's advantage. The Marine is a duelist. The Rak'Gol is a brawler. It does not care about winning. It cares about destroying. The Astartes may kill the shaman, but he will be wounded. His armor breached his body, poisoned by the creature's radioactive presence. For the Rak'Gol, this is a victory. vs. the Orcs. This is not a war. This is a party. When a Waichu encounters a Rak'Gol fleet, the Orcs are ecstatic. Here finally is an enemy that understands, an enemy that also loves scrap, an enemy that also loves to charge, an enemy that doesn't hide or use tricky cunning plans. An Orc boy charges chopper raised, screaming, Whoa! A Rak'Gol clutchkin charges razor-raised hissing static. The two forces meet in a glorious, catastrophic, and unbelievably loud melee. The orcs are overjoyed. The Rak'Gol are just enraged. The orcs are fighting for the joy of the good fight. The Rak'Gol are fighting out of a hateful imperative to destroy. The orc mech boys would be fascinated by Rak'Gol technology, but they would also be confused. Dizair Rad Shooter is weird, a mech would grunt holding a captured rad cleanser. It's deed odd, but it's quiet. It don't make a good Daka sound, and dis scrap arm. Why'd debolt it on Sobberly? It ain't got no flash. The orcs would improve the Rak'Gol tech, painting it red, to make it go faster, adding more pipes and making it explode more often. The Rak'Gol in turn would capture orc deaf dreads, tear off the silly glyphs, and desecrate them into their own crude radiation-leaking totems. This is a war that would likely never end. It is a perfect, self-sustaining loop of scrapyard violence, a conflict that both sides, for their own completely different and insane reasons, find infinitely satisfying. VS the Aeldari, specifically Corsairs. This is not a battle. This is extermination. This is art versus filth. To an Eldar B, they are strict Asuriani or a wild Corsair. The Rak'Gol are the ultimate anathema. They are the physical embodiment of disgust. They are ugly. They are crude. They are loud. They are spiritually empty, radiating only a cold, static-filled hate. They are soulless in a way that is even more offensive than the Necrons. An Eldar Corsair ship, a sleek, solar-sailed void dragon, encounters a Rak'Gol carrion cruiser. The Eldar do not engage. They dance. Their ship is too fast, their movements too elegant. They stay at extreme range, their bright lance weapons lances of pure, focused light, systematically amputating the Rak'Gol vessel. They target its engines, its crude weapon arrays. But the Rak'Gol charges. When the Eldar are forced into a ground fight, it is a battle of pure contrast. A squad of Eldar Rangers, their camo cloaks blending into the shadows, their long rifles silent and deadly. They fire each shot a perfect monomolecular needle that punches through a Rak'Gol's eye lens, dropping it silently. But the Techno-Shaman shrieks. It knows they are there. It floods the area with a rad cleanser's burst. The Rangers' camo cloaks fail. Their advanced augurs die. And the Gorehounds are unleashed, scuttling, sniffing, hunting. It is grace versus rage. It is precision versus numbers. The Elder will kill hundreds of Rak'Gol, but they will be horrified and tainted by the experience. The smell of the Rak'Gol ozone rust and rot will haunt them. This is not a war for them. It is a cleansing, a purification of the galaxy, and they will pursue it with a cold, disgusted fury. Ves the Drukhari. The Drukhari, the Dark Elder of Komarok, are connoisseurs of pain. They are artisans of agony. When their raiding parties first encountered the Rak'Gol, their archons were for a moment intrigued. Here is a race that willingly, joyfully mutilates itself. A race that lives in a constant, self-inflicted state of agony from its own cybernetics. What a fascinating curiosity. What a potential masterpiece for the arenas of Komaraga. So they tried to capture them. A squad of witches, fast and elegant, their blades laced with paralytic toxins, moved to capture a Techno-Shaman. They expected to fight a brute. They did not expect to fight a zealot. The Rak'Gol do not feel pain in the same way. The toxins worked, but the Techno-Shaman's hateful dogma overrode the sensory input. It tore off its own arm, the one immobilized by the witch's blade, and beat the witch to death with the severed cybernetic limb. The Drukhari quickly realized the truth. The Rak'Gol's pain, it is crude. It is unrefined. It is the pain of a hammer, not a scalpel. There is no art to it. It is just ugly. A homunculus, a master fleshcrafter, would look at a Rak'Gol's cybernetics with pure, unadulterated contempt. Child's play, it would hiss. No nuance, no terror, just damage. The Rak'Gol are not fun to the Drukhari. They are boring. They are broken, unresponsive, static-filled toys. They are not worth the effort to capture. They are simply vermin. To be exterminated, yes, but not to be savored. vs. the Tyranids. This is the most interesting, most biological conflict. The ultimate consumer versus the ultimate parasite. A Tyranid hive fleet, a tendril of the great devourer, enters a system infested by Rak'Gol. The hive mind extends its synapse web. It senses the Rak'Gol, and it is confused. It senses life. Billions of organisms. It senses biomass. But the signal is wrong. It is noisy. It is dirty. The biomass is tainted, riddled with crude metal leaking radiation, and saturated with a cold, static-like hate that is not the warm, pure hunger of the hive. The swarms meet. Hormagaunts, creatures of pure, evolved scythe claws, clash with clutchkin creatures of bolted-on scrap claws. The hive mind attempts to absorb the defeated Rak'Gol. The Ripper swarms descend. They try to eat, and they recoil. The flesh is toxic. The metal is indigestible. The radiation poisons the reclamation pools. This is junk food. This is anti-biomass. But the hive mind is the ultimate adapter. It does not give up. It learns. It cannot absorb the Rak'Gol as they are. So it analyzes them. It captures a techno-shaman. It feels the creature's primitive static-filled synapse and scoffs before it dissects its brain. It analyzes the Rak'Gol's DNA, its radiation immunity. And then it creates. From the birthing pools, a new creature emerges, a Tyranid bioform, but it has pale, thick, stone-like hide. Its eyes can see in radiation. It has 8 limbs, and from its gullet it does not spit acid. It projects a focused organic beam of pure bio-radiation. The hive mind has stolen the Rak'Gol's truth. It has perfected their heresy. It has created a purely biological, perfectly functional rad cleanser organism. The Rak'Gol in their blind hatred have just given the great devourer a new and absolutely terrifying weapon. The hive mind in its infinite hunger has rendered the Rak'Gol's entire religion utterly and terminally obsolete. vs. the Toe Empire. This is a conflict of absolute polar opposite philosophies. A Toe expansion fleet led by a water-caste diplomat encounters a Rak'Gol vessel. The Toe, in their unflinching optimism, try to make contact. Join us for the greater good. We can offer you peace technology, a better way of life. The Rak'Gol response is a rad bomb that nearly cripples the Tau flagship. For the Firecaste, this is a failure of the greater good protocol. This is an enemy that cannot be reasoned with. This is Malkor, a monster that must be purged. The Tau ground war is the Rak'Gol's nightmare. A fire warrior gun line is a thing of pure technological perfection. It is clean. It is efficient. The Shazui paints a techno-shaman with his marker light. In an instant, every pulse rifle in the line has the target lock. A wall of high-intensity plasma fire, guided by perfect, clean, functional computers, vaporizes the shaman before it can even shriek. The Rak'Gol charge as they always do. They are met by the clean, networked, impersonal firepower of battlesuits. Drones buzz overhead, providing perfect, real-time tactical data. This is everything the Rak'Gol hate. This is the ultimate heresy. It is technology that is impersonal. It is technology that is perfect. It is technology that wins without pain or sacrifice on their side. The Rak'Gol will die in their thousands, charging this clean blue line, shrieking their static-filled rage at a heresy so profound, so offensive to their creed that it drives them insane. They will fight with a suicidal fury that even shocks the Toe, but they will lose. The Toe's clean, functional, ranged heresy is simply and demonstrably better than the Rak'Gol's crude, hateful, broken faith. We have spent the vast majority of our time diving deep inside the universe. We have analyzed the psychology, the biology, and the origin theories of the Rak'Gol. Now it is time for us to zoom out. It is time to step back from the page, to look at the source book, and to ask the more important meta-question. Why do the Rak'Gol exist? I don't mean their in-universe origin, I mean their real-world purpose. Why did the authors at Fantasy Flight Games, when given the keys to expand the Warhammer 40K universe for the Rogue Trader role-playing game, create this race? The answer reveals a profound truth about storytelling game design and the very nature of Grimdark. First and most importantly, we must understand their in-game role. The Rak'Gol were not created to be a balanced, playable faction for the tabletop. They were created for a very specific purpose. They are a game master's tool. They are the GM's best friend and the player's worst nightmare. Think about the context of the Rogue Trader RPG. The players are not lowly Imperial guardsmen or skulking acolytes. The players are rogue traders. They are prince merchants conquistadors in command of massive starships, thousands of soldiers, and near limitless wealth. They are the James Bond meets Hernan Cortez of the 40K universe. So how do you, as a game master, challenge a group of players who can literally buy a planet? How do you threaten people who can bribe, intimidate, or negotiate their way out of almost any problem? You can't throw normal pirates at them. The players will bribe them. You can't throw TOW officials at them. The players will try to negotiate or shoot them. You can't throw a chaos cultist at them. The players will call the Inquisition. You need something that breaks the rules. You need something that money cannot buy. Something that eloquent speeches cannot sway. Something that force of arms can barely scratch. You need a force of nature. This is the genius of the Rak'Gol's design. They are the unnegotiable foe. You cannot bribe a Rak'Gol. It doesn't care about your gold, it wants your bones. You cannot intimidate a Rak'Gol. It has no concept of fear or self-preservation. You cannot reason with a Rak'Gol. Its language is the roar of static and the buzz of a razor. The Rak'Gol are a narrative device. They are the tool the GM uses to completely change the tone of the game. When the Rak'Gol show up, the game of Rogue Trader, which is about profit exploration and politics, suddenly becomes Alien or Event Horizon. It becomes a survival horror game. They are the personification of pure, unadulterated terror. Their purpose is to frighten the players, to make them feel helpless despite their immense power and wealth. Second, the Rak'Gol fill a vital niche in the Xenos ecosystem. The 40K universe is crowded, but think about it. We have the pure bio Xenos, the Tyranids, the all-consuming. We have the pure machine Xenos, the Necrons, the soulless automata. We have the magic psychic Xenos, the Aeldari elegant and decadent. We have the brute tech Xenos, the orcs violent and comedic. So what's missing? We are missing a cybernetic horror race. The Adeptus Mechanicus and Dark Mechanicum cover the human side of this obsession. But for Xenos, the Necrons are too clean. Their technology is perfect, magical self-repairing. The Rak'Gol are the filthy other side of that coin. They are the Cronenberg of 40K. They are body horror. They are the revulsion of rust oil torn flesh and leaking pistons bolted directly to bone. They perfectly fill the gap between the Tyranid bio-horror and the Necron machine horror. They are the worst of both crude cybernetic horror. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What is their place in mainstream Games Workshop GW lore? Why do we never see them in a codex? Why are they not mentioned in major campaigns? The answer lies in the corporate separation. Fantasy Flight Games FFG held the license for the 40K RPGs for many years. They created a massive amount of deep lore for their games, Rogue Trader, Dark Heresy, Deathwatch to fill in the gaps GW left. The Rak'Gol, the Sloth, the Yuvath, these are FFG creations. Games Workshop has an unofficial but very effective policy. They rarely contradict FFG's lore, but they also very rarely officially acknowledge it. Is this a snub? Not at all. It's actually a benefit for GW. By keeping threats like the Rak'Gol in this limbo, this secondary or expanded lore GW makes their universe feel infinitely larger. It allows rumors and mysteries to exist. The galaxy isn't just what's in the 12 or so codices. It's full of unnamed, unclassified horrors lurking just off the edge of the map. The Rak'Gol are that horror. Finally, this leads to their future. Will the Rak'Gol ever become a tabletop army? I will say it is highly, highly unlikely, and frankly, we should hope they don't. The entire appeal of the Rak'Gol is their mystery. Their power comes from what we don't know. To make them a tabletop army would require defining them. It would require a codex. A codex would answer all the questions. It would explain their origin exactly. It would give a point value to a techno-shaman and a clutchkin. And in that instant, the mystery would die. The terror would be quantified. the monster in the dark would be dragged into the light and turned into a plastic model with a stat line. This is why fans are so drawn to them. It's the mystery box effect. The very fact that we have to have this 16-chapter-long discussion piecing together scraps of information and 6 different theories is what makes them compelling. The Rak'Gol are not a faction. They are a function. They are a narrative tool, a piece of genius game design, and a perfect symbol of the power of the unknown in the Warhammer 40K universe. They are true horror, because they are the horror you can never ever fully understand. We have reached the end of our excavation. We have descended into the dark, irradiated and static-filled archives of the Coronis Expanse, and we have returned, piecing together the fragments of a nightmare. After all this analysis, this deep dive into the darkest corners of the lore, what do we truly know? We must separate fact from theory. Here are the facts. Here is what we know for certain. The Rak'Gol are an 8-limbed reptilian arachnid Xenos race operating primarily in the Coronis Expanse and Halo stars. They are defined by their crude, brutal, and seemingly ritualistic cybernetic augmentations. They are parasitic reavers capturing the ships of other races and desecrating them into their own crude, leaking, toxic vessels. They are pathologically violent, fanatically hateful of pure technology, and seemingly incapable of negotiation, fear, or diplomacy. They utilize a unique and horrifying arsenal based on radiation, specifically the Rad Cleanser. They are organized into a rigid, hive-like caste system, including the Clutchkin warriors and the Techno-Shaman leaders. Their presence is a plague of desecration, leaving behind only scrap totems, harvested bone, and irradiated ruins. These are the facts, and now we must face the mysteries. We do not know where they come from. A toxic homeworld, a lost fleet. We do not know their ultimate motive. Is it a religion of scrap, a corrupted program, or just the natural, hateful evolution of a monster? And most importantly, we do not know if they are their own masters. Are they a tool of the sloth, a corrupted echo of the void dragon, the lost, insane weapon of the old ones, or are they most terrifyingly exactly what they seem to be? This is the very essence of the Rak'Gol. They are the ultimate perfect personification of the Xenos enigma in Warhammer 40,000 Talos. They are not a conqueror like the Tau whom we can fight. They are not a consumer like the Tyranids whom we can understand. They are not a rival like the Orcs whom we can almost respect. The Rak'Gol are a question. They are a void. They are an unsolvable, hateful riddle wrapped in bone scrap and radiation. In a galaxy defined by its grand epic and well-documented threats, the Rak'Gol serve as a chilling, vital reminder. We are not safe. We do not know everything. The galaxy is not a collection of warring empires that can be mapped and understood. It is a vast, dark, and unknowable ocean, and in its deepest, uncharted corners, things like the Rak'Gol are not just possible, they are inevitable. They are not an empire to be defeated. They are a dark, natural force like a stellar mass black hole or a gamma-ray burst. They are a fact of the universe's cruelty, a walking, hissing, 8-limbed symbol of every dark corner, every silent void, and every terrifying unknown that lies beyond the Emperor's light. So after all of this, after weighing every theory from the sloth to the old ones, from a slave race to a natural-born nightmare, what do you think? What is the real nature of the Rak'Gol? Leave your theories, your own scraps of lore in the darkness below. Will we ever truly know the truth? Or is the mystery, the terrifying, static-filled, unknowable enigma the entire point?